Hi, my name is Kelly McMahon, and I'm about to teach you all about how I became me. I was born July 6th, 1990, in a small suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. My parents were divorced right after I was born, so it was just my mom and I in this little blue house on Smuggler's Cove. We were about 5 minutes away from my grandmother's house, so I spent most of my days either at her house or at a small in-home daycare while my mother taught second grade at a nearby school. My mother and grandmother probably are the most influential women in my life. My mother taught me kindness, empathy, helpfulness, compassion. My grandmother taught me independence and how to accept others for who they are, and of course a lot of card games. When I was 5, my mother married her college sweetheart, Dave Soley, and we moved to his hometown of La Crosse, Wisconsin. I don't really remember having any negative feelings towards this, but then again, at the age of 5, I was just excited to wear a pretty dress and throw flowers down the aisle. I met friends right away. We lived in a middle to high, pretty predominantly white neighborhood. By second grade, I had my two best friends, Carolyn and Abby. I do remember being a little jealous of them. At this point, I had two younger siblings, and I had to share a room with my baby sister, whereas my best friends had older siblings and their own rooms and seemed to have a little bit more than I did. But now that I look back, I realize that I was very wealthy. I spent my summers at my family's cabin. It was small and had running water and a toilet, but no shower, and about 8 beds in one big room. However, I loved it. I spent time there, lounging by the lake and swimming and learning to fish and ski and drive the boat. And I got to play with my cousins from Ohio and my brother and sister. By the time I was in high school, I definitely was not very kind to my parents, and I made some pretty bad choices in friends and let them influence the decisions I was making. I remember the first time I went to test drive a car, and of course, I had to have it. That ugly blue Saturn that I drove, the first car I ever drove all by myself, I had to have it, and I threw this fit in my parents' foyer screaming, and thank goodness my grandmother and mother were understanding of my age and development, and they got me settled down, and my first car was a beautiful Volkswagen Jetta that not only drove me but my brother and sister through high school. By this point, I don't remember church having much of an impact in my life, though I do have two distinct memories. Uh, my freshman year of high school, my dad calls it the year of terror. They sent me to Kentucky on a youth mission trip through my aunt and uncle's church in Ohio. I do remember being surprised by a lack of facilities and just stuff in general that people did not have in the community. And the water was undrinkable. We had to use water bottles to even brush our teeth, and the girl that slept in the bunk above me had very little clothes and was frostbit almost every night. The people in the community were so thankful for the small meal and gifts that we were giving at Christmas time, and honestly, at this point, I don't really remember feeling very judgmental, just shocked by it. My second memory of church was just boredom. My dad's parents, my grandparents, would force me to go to confirmation, and everything. Everything bored me there, and I remember spending most of my time in the child care center playing with my brother and sister and the other kids. I definitely was very self-centered in my early years of high school, but I did have one teacher that reminded me of what my mother and grandmother had taught me over the years. Her name was Sarah Essman, and she was my 8th grade ELA teacher. She followed my class to the high school, and when I was kicked out of other classrooms, I would go into her classroom to talk through things or to take a break. And if someone were to ask me the most influential teacher in my life, I would say Sarah. And it wasn't because of what she taught me, but because of how she treated me, and that definitely has had an impact on how I treat students in my classroom. I started college at the University of Minnesota in the Twin Cities. This is where I got really close with my grandmother. I would fly out to Minneapolis a couple times a year to visit her by myself. I majored in family social science, and I wanted to work with children of divorced families or counsel children through court systems, and this was probably partly because of my parents being divorced, but then also I just watched a lot of Law and Order at that time. I volunteered at a local community school. It was in Minneapolis, and it was very culturally and ethically diverse community. I truly don't remember noticing race at all, but I did see children in poverty and children that needed an adult to just care for them and love them and teach them. And this experience taught me a lot just about who I wanted to be as a teacher. By the time I transferred to UWL, I was ready to be done with school, and UWL's teaching program was shorter than mine, or shorter than University of Minnesota's, so I transferred there. I moved in with my boyfriend Matt, and he proposed to me in October of 2010. We were married right before my last semester of college on June 9th, 2012. I received my first job right out of college at a small public school in Trempealeau, Wisconsin, and I truly loved my experience there. I learned the impact that families have on children and how support can go a long way, and I'm thankful for the understanding and acceptance that every teacher and student, staff member, and parent gave me. They welcomed me with open arms and just showed me the importance of that small and supportive community. After 3 years in Trempealeau, I moved to Eagle Bluff Elementary in Onalaska, Wisconsin. I was excited to be back in my hometown and community, and just the comfort level that that school provided to me since I had actually gone there as a student. My husband's had a huge impact on who I am today. He's taught me confidence in myself, but has also helped me view experiences and moments with a rational mind. He's lessened my stress and taught me not to sweat the small stuff and how to enjoy peace and quiet. Through him, I have learned that simple is better and less is more, and experiences are much more important than the physical items that you have. Our daughter's now a year and a half, and she's taught me a lot about small victories and how those need to be celebrated on a daily basis, and how we learn together, and it's exciting, and that there isn't a single person in this world that could have made it to where they are alone. And I definitely think about that every day when I walk into the classroom and know that my students need a support, and that's what I'm here for. And these are the pieces that made me.